Колеги, ми продовжуємо.
Dear colleagues, we are going on with our work, and I invite to the floor the spokesperson of the administration of the President of Ukraine on the issues of anti-terrorist operation, Colonel Andriy Lysenko. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I have to tell you that in Mariupol sector, the only point of confrontation is the settlement of Shirokino, where the enemy is using a broad range of weapons from small firearms to 122mm cannons. In Donetsk sector, the situation remains the most complicated. Yesterday, the combat action on the western suburbs of Donetsk have become more active after noon, and the enemy was shelling very intensively our positions from cannons, 120mm mortars, and tanks. Besides, the terrorists of the DNR, apart from shelling the combat positions of the anti-terrorist operation forces, they have also shelled residential blocks of Avdiivka, Opitne, and Vodine from 122mm cannons, as a result of which there are casualties among civilians. One person died and two were wounded. The combat clashes are going on the eastern and western outskirts of Horlivka, where the enemy has concentrated a significant number of 120mm mortars and other heavy armaments and are using them intensively. In Luhansk sector, there's exchange of fire next to Zolote, Shastya, and Stanitsa Luhanska, mostly from small firearms. Yesterday, 23 flights of enemy drones were detected in the anti-terrorist operation zone, and another two were detected by our bodyguards on the administrative border with the occupied Crimea, and one drone was detected at the border with Russia in Sumy region. It crossed the Ukrainian border. Over the last 24 hours, as a result of combat action, we lost 3 Ukrainian military personnel and 12 were wounded. Ukrainian military have sustained the heaviest losses in Donetsk direction. Yesterday, the journalists and public were shown a Russian drone of the 4-post brand, which is being produced at Ural Civil Aviation Plant in Yekaterinburg, licensed by Israel. The serial number of this device is 923, and it was produced in 2013. This drone was carrying the station of tactical reconnaissance, heat visor, and radio location station, and was downed by the anti-terrorist operation forces in the sky over the Pisky settlement. This drone is used by the Russian Federation units, which is again corroborated the direct participation of regular military formations of armed forces of Russian Federation and modern Russian technology in the aggression against Ukraine. The Ukrainian National Guards are undergoing rehabilitation after service according to the NATO program. According to the decompression SAS end of mission program, a military serviceman undergoes 3-4 days of restoration rehabilitation with the participation of a medic, psychologist, and physical culture instructors. Then the experience in Western countries is being used also while training our military and training centers. Our partners continue to help Ukraine with the modern medical equipment. The Turkish agency of cooperation coordination have bought a modern expert ultrasound diagnostics device for the Dnipropetrovsk military hospital, And such a device will allow to not only conduct a quality research of all the bodies and systems of a organs and the systems of a person, but also serious manipulations under the control of the ultrasound device. And over 5,000 wounded military have undergone treatment in 15 hospitals of Dnipropetrovsk region. Ukrainian patriots have collected additional money to buy medical equipment for Mykolaiv hospital. Rotation in the units of the Ukrainian law enforcers goes on after a month of service in the anti-terrorist operation zone. Zaporizhian militiamen were replaced by their combat brothers in arms, and they were stationed around and in Mariupol. And for the professional performing their duty, the Zaporizhian guys were awarded by the commanders of Donetsk militia and the headquarters of the anti-terrorist operation. In spite of the tense situation at the front line, our military commemorate the traditions and find time to celebrate days that are dear to every Ukrainian. Yesterday, the military of the 24th Separate Battalion of the Armed Forces of Ukraine in Luhansk region have donned embroidered shirts that the volunteers have given them and joined in celebration. Also, the military have greeted all the Ukrainians who are Eastern Rite Christians with the Ascension holiday. Today we are telling you about another Ukrainian officer, a gray-haired commander of the reconnaissance company of airborne troops, nicknamed Did, grandfather, told that the reconnaissance people are constantly collecting information about the intentions of the enemy and the combat situation. Almost every day they are under the bullets of terrorists and risk their lives. Most of the fighters in this unit have donned their army uniforms in the autumn of 2014. Most of them are volunteers who became contract signers. They have gone through the Donetsk airport, they were defending the positions, and they have more than once in combat action with enemy subversive groups, and those were not miners or tractor drivers, but trained Russian military of the special designation, which the metal tags testify to, and the boatsman, the machine gunner, said that his baptizing in battle was in January this year.
How many of those losses Ukraine had during those days, how many of them were in Donetsk, towards Donetsk, and where else? The first question. And it's clear that Minsk agreements are not just abused, but how abused? Because you speak about intensive fires using big quality caliber. What will be the reaction to that? I will not be able to tell you in details about losses when, let's say, those who died and who were wounded on that towards Donetsk, mostly of that is in Piske. Number of them I will tell you later. As to Minsk agreements, we are Ukraine as a state. We have war the aggressor. We fight back. We continue applying Minsk agreements. We have to do that well, and we should show how to do that, and we do that every day. Just to prove to the world that we're trying, we want peace, and in a peaceful way, and we should respond if there is, of course, if there are attacks. But we hold our positions and we defend. So that's why Minsk agreements we have them. Ukraine is complying with it, and we want the other party to comply with it, and that will be the first a step to peace in Donbass, and it is for liberation of Donbass from terrorists. Thank you very much. Next question. The staff of ATO, do they coordinate actions with information resistance, or you have different sources of information? ATO staff is managed or uses that data that commanders from units provide, and they are on the front line. Also, there is information, I mean intelligence, and also there is operational information from our sources from on the other side. But we cannot provide all information because it can be a threat for our soldiers. That's why we give information just official and which is a reflection of the situation on the front. With information resistance, we have contacts, but one more. To have channel information, how many shell-ins were during the last day, and also if to analyze what is the trend. How could you describe the situation in general? Difficult, complicated, what is the trend? I understand. It's a two number I cannot give you now, but the impulse, this situation is impulsive because provocations of militants take place every day, but we can not say that we have more every day or less of them. We have people who are soldiers who are killed every day, who are wounded every day. It means that provocations and fights are taking place all the time, and on different directions. They're different as to intensity. The trend towards Donetsk is the situation is the most complicated and also provocations and a lot of clashes. The number of shelling will not reflect the intensity of battles, because just one battle can last 2-3 hours. It is more dangerous than 15 shellings in some other direction. So the number of shellings is not a good sign to understand the situation. Prime Minister of Ukraine told that by June 29 there will be no advance from the east, and he gave his arguments. Assessment of military experts. Is it possible that there will be an advance, short, quick? What will the aviation be used? If they use aviation, then it will be. If the aggressor will use the aviation, and that will be a full-fledged military conflict. Now we monitor the situation, we collect information, and we have get data from our sources and from different sources, and that all of that tells us that military conflict, the conflict can begin at any moment. to speak about, we cannot speak about full-fledged offense because we didn't have it yesterday or the day before yesterday. We don't know who can give that order, so we can make conclusions and we understand that the enemy can start an offense at any moment. And if we speak about full-fledged I will tell you that in May, in armed forces of they have demobilization, and at the same time they mobilize young military men. So Russian army will lose some trained people who will be demobilized, and we cannot speak about full-fledged migration. If Russian Federation refuses to demobilize them, that's a sign that the country is preparing to broad aggression. We know that they have started the process of demobilization. Next question is in English, and
I'm ready.
Thank you. Nolan Peterson from the Daily Signal in Washington, D.C. First, do you have a comment in response to the Amnesty International report that they discussed earlier this morning? And second, there's recently been a bit of a shift in Russian rhetoric concerning the Donbass. Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov recently said that Donbass should remain part of Ukraine. And also a separatist leader, Oleg Sarayev, sorry, my pronunciation's off, but he said that the idea of Novorossiya should be abandoned. Do you see these statements as an indication that there could be hope for things going in a better direction? And do you still anticipate an offensive this summer by the separatists?
If it's about full-fledged advance, we are ready for that at any moment. We have mobilized soldiers, we have forces, and we have one more wave of mobilization. And the first one was demobilized, but they are in reserve, and in several hours they are ready to get the guns and machine guns and to defend the country. Secondly, Donbass was, is, and will be a territory of Ukraine. Pro-Russian mercenaries and Russian military men on the temporarily occupied territory of Donbass and Crimea, that is a temporary phenomenon. Ukraine will do everything for those territories to be returned back, and we wanted to give a chance to civilians to continue their life on those territories. We will do everything possible to get money for that. And we have a special fund for donors, and about 20 countries, partners, they are ready to give money for that fund and to rebuild Donbass. And why do I speak about Crimea? Because Crimea is a part of Ukraine, and it is Ukrainian territory and will be a Ukrainian territory. What is happening in statements of pro-Russian or Russian leaders about the project of Novorossiya, it's not a project anymore, etc. That proves that they change tactics. The Russian aggressor is changing tactics. That's the first sign. Secondly, there is President of Ukraine is working all the time, and also Foreign Ministry is working on that. They work with our Western and other partners who support Ukraine in order to set pressure on Russian Federation, economic pressure, political pressure, and other kinds of pressure and to force Russia to look back and to take conclusions. We understand that Russian Federation and the leadership of that country, at the same time, in 1 minute, they will not change their opinion overnight. Otherwise, they will be like weak players, and they want to look weak in front of their nation, and that will be very negative for Kremlin, because soon they will have elections, and they want to stay in power. They will do everything to hold their seats. That's why Russian Federation and the Kremlin will do everything possible to change the situation, to improve the economic situation, and that will happen not in 2 or 3 days. They will try to press on partners as to trade, because sanctions in banking sector also, they are tough. And that is very difficult for Russian economy or Russian Federation. So social tension in Russia is growing every day. And there are some calculations. There is data that for occupied Crimea, Russian Federation annually should donate about $3 billion. And just to support social sector, like pensions, salaries of to support Donbass, Russia has to donate $10 billion annually. That is much more than for the biggest territory in Russian Federation. So those spendings cannot be done by Russian Federation on a regular basis. That's a big threat to economic situation, a social situation in Russia. And that's why Russian leadership will try to change the situation. A refusal from Novorossiya project, that's the first step, and that's a sign that that process has started. Thank you, Colonel, and the time is over, and see you tomorrow.